हेलो दोस्तों, मैं रोहन स्वागत करता हूं आपको मेरे चैनल लर्नर्स फेलो पे। अगर आप में है कुछ सीखते रहने का जज्बा तो ये चैनल बिल्कुल आपके लिए सही प्लेटफॉर्म है। आज हम लोग बात करने वाले हैं एसएससी जीएसटी पेपर 2 के ऐसे के टॉपिक के बारे में, जिसमें हमारा टॉपिक है ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग मॉडर्न डे स्लेवरी। ये सीरीज़ में हम लोग लगातार एसेज पे बात कर रहे हैं, चर्चा कर रहे हैं, और भी एसेज हमारे एसएससी जीएसटी नाम के प्लेलिस्ट में डले हुए हैं और आने वाले दिनों में आपके डाल दिए जाएंगे। और आप हमारे टेलीग्राम चैनल लर्नर्स फेलो सर्च करके वहाँ ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं इसका पीडीएफ डाउनलोड करने के लिए। तो बिना टाइम गवाए शुरू करते हैं। ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग, इसको मानव तस्करी भी कहा जाता है, मॉडर्न डे स्लेवरी। Human trafficking is one of the most heinous forms of organized crime and violation of human rights all over the world. There is a strong concern on the rising trend and multi-dimensional nature of this criminal phenomenon, which victimizes men, women, and children. Traffickers take into account neither borders, laws, nor national prejudice. The objective of human trafficking is profit, whether through abduction or deception. They trap innocent people whose lives are then transformed into the worst of nightmares. Trafficking assaults human dignity, violates fundamental rights, and erodes conscience. Types of human trafficking. It is important to understand the various types of human trafficking prevailing in the world. People can be trafficked and exploited in many forms, including being forced into sexual exploitation, labor, begging, crime, domestic servitude, marriage, or organ removal. Trafficking in children is likely for the purpose of either child pornography or bonded labor. Trafficking in women for sexual exploitation affects every region in the world. Victims are often provided with false promises of decent employment and are transported to other countries to be forced into sexual slavery. A forced marriage qualifies as a form of human trafficking if a woman is sent abroad, forced into the marriage, and then repeatedly compelled to engage in sexual conduct. Trafficking in humans for the purpose of using their organs, particularly kidneys, is a rapidly growing field of criminal activity. Human trafficking is a global issue concern. A global report on trafficking in persons by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime (UNODC) offers the first global assessment of the scope of human trafficking. It is based on data gathered from 155 countries. According to the report, the most common form of human trafficking is sexual exploitation. 79%. The victims of sexual exploitation are predominantly women and girls. The second most common form of human trafficking is forced labor, 18%. Although this may be misrepresentation because forced labor is less frequently detected and reported than trafficking for sexual exploitation. Worldwide, almost 20% of all human trafficking victims are children. However, in some parts of Mekong region and Africa, children are majority. 100%. Bangladesh takes the first spot on the list of 155 countries with the highest rate of human trafficking in the world. Ghana in Africa has become a point of destination for a lot of trafficking in children who are forced to work laborers in the mines, especially gold mines. In Uganda, children are either trafficked for forced labor or they are killed for their organs. Nepal is considered to be the busiest route in human trafficking, where trafficking of women. Some other countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Haiti, where forced laborers, prostitution is on high rate. Women in Iraq are also vulnerable to crimes, sexual assault, and human trafficking, while women from India, mostly from poor families, are generally sold to Saudi Arabia for marriage purpose. The consequence of trafficking. The consequences of human trafficking are most directly felt by those who are victims. Trafficking usually involves prolonged and repeated trauma. The victims are at great risk of HIV infection. On the other hand, there are economic consequences of human trafficking. The amount of money that countries spend in its prevention, the treatment, and the support of victims, and the prosecution and apprehension of offenders is huge. According to estimates from International Labour Organization (ILO), every year human trafficking industry generates 32 billion USD, a large but not taxable income. Initiatives taken by United Nations. Initiatives have been taken worldwide to deal with the severe issue of human trafficking. These include UN Office on Drugs and Crime (UNODC) assisted many NGOs in their fight trafficking. These include UN Office on Drugs and assisted many NGOs for the fight against human trafficking. The United Nations Global Initiative to Fight Human Trafficking (UNGIHT) was conceived to promote the global fight against this crime. United Nations Voluntary Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking in Persons 2010 provide humanitarian, legal and financial aid to the victims of human trafficking. Human trafficking in India. Human trafficking has expanded to almost every state in India, especially in the state of Jharkhand. Human trafficking is widespread. Some southern states like Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka also lead in human trafficking. Delhi is the hotspot for illegal trade of young girls for domestic labor, forced marriage and prostitution. Child, especially young girls and women, mostly from northeast, are taken from their homes and sold in faraway states of India for sexual exploitation and to work as bonded labor. Girls are forced to marry more than one man in some states where female to male sex ratio is highly imbalanced. New data released by Indian government shows that report of human trafficking rose by 20% in 2016 against the previous year. National Crime Records Bureau (NCRB) said that there were 8,132 human trafficking cases in 2016 against 6,877 in 2015, with the highest number of cases reported in the state of West Bengal, followed by Rajasthan. Steps taken by the Government of India. Efforts have been made by the Government of India to combat the issues of human trafficking. It penalizes trafficking for commercial sexual exploitation through the Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act (ITPA) 1986, which prescribes penalty ranging from 7 years to life imprisonment. India also prohibits bonded and forced labor through the Bonded Labor Abolition Act, the Child Labor Prohibition Act, and the Juvenile Justice Act. Indian authorities also use sections 366A and 372 of the Indian Penal Code prohibiting kidnapping and selling of minors into prostitution respectively. An anti-trafficking nodal cell has been set up under the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Home Ministry has also launched a web portal on the anti-human trafficking, and the Ministry of Women and Child Development is implementing Ujjwala, a program that focuses on rescue, rehabilitation and repatriation of victims. Indian Constitution bans the human trafficking in person. Article 23 in the Fundamental Rights section of the Constitution prohibits traffic in human being and other similar forms of forced labor. The government has launched a Lost and Found or Khoya Paya website to help families trace the tens of thousands of children in the country who go missing every year, often abducted for forced labor or sexual exploitation, and are never found. Conclusion. Even though a large number of efforts are being made in India as well as in the world against this crime, it is still prevailing in the society to a large extent. More efforts are needed to drive away this evil from the society at large. Some stringent anti-trafficking laws and their right implementation is required. People should be educated on human trafficking issues and help the survivors to find security and happiness. तो आज का ऐसे यही था. अगर इस तरह के ऐसेज और भी आप हमारे प्लेलिस्ट में जाके देख सकते हैं, और हमारा ये टेलीग्राम चैनल है लर्नर्स फेलो, वहाँ पे सर्च करेंगे या इस लिंक को आप टाइप करके या लर्नर्स फेलो सर्च करके आप वहाँ से ज्वाइन करके इसका PDF डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं. आने वाले टाइम में और भी ऐसेज अपडेट हो जाएंगे. अगर ये वीडियो आपको इन्फॉर्मेटिव लगा हो, आपको ये काम आ रहा हो, तो सिर्फ वीडियो देख के ना जाइए. हमारी मेहनत को और मोटिवेशन की ज़रूरत होती है, तो इसे आप लाइक करें और चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लें, ताकि और भी जो अपडेटेड ट्रांसलेटर एग्जाम से रिलेटेड आती रहती हैं वो इस चैनल पे आपको मिलती रहेंगी. वीडियो देखने के लिए आप सबों का बहुत